Hi, my name is John Whitehead. I'm an executive and leadership coach, and welcome to this week's video blog post. Well, we're well into the COVID-19 pandemic crisis now, aren't we? And there are companies that are now looking at what do we do moving forward? Is there a new normal here? Is there a new way of doing it? Can we go back to the way it was? And as I've been watching things come across social media, articles I've been reading, news reports, it made me think of William Bridges and some of the work he did in transitions. And so I pulled out this book that I've had for a while, Managing Transitions, Making the Most of Change. And as I was going through it, there was a stark clarity about what Bill Richards was writing that number of years ago, with what we're going through right now. Like, what will the new normal be? What do we change? How do we deal with change? What's happening with this transition, right? And I like one of the comments, one of my favorite comments is quotes is from this book. And he says, it's not the change that does us in, it's not change that kills us, it's the transitions. It's that moving from the old to the new. And in fact, Bridges calls that the neutral zone. The neutral zone from when we end an old way and we really have to end it and move into a new way of doing things. And I think it's interesting that Facebook and Twitter today made announcements about how they're going to allow their employees to continue working from home for as long as they need to. And they put it forever. So we're seeing companies that have the ability to start moving their workforce to home office situations. They're giving them the resources they need to operate from home, because they're actually seeing productivity is actually not decreasing, it's actually increasing. I was talking to a client today, and that was his comment was, I'm doing more. I'm getting more accomplished because I'm not spending time around in the office conversationalizing. I'm at home and I'm getting stuff done. And of course, the challenge is what I spoke about last week, and the challenge being keeping that work-life balance and working on that. As I'm reading Bridges' book, there were a couple of things that jumped out of me. And he talked about this neutral zone could be a really difficult time, right? Because some people might get impatient. Those don't, especially those, you think about some organizations where there's very low trust factors, and now you're having your workers work from home, that gets magnified. And so there is that challenge of trust and building that trust. He talks about how in the neutral zone, personnel get overloaded. That's what I was talking about last week, right? It's natural for people to become polarized between those who want to rush forward and those who want to go back to the old ways, because they're comfortable with those old ways. It's also a little bit dangerous, because in the neutral zone, there's really a question of how do we measure success? How much do we measure things getting done? But he also says here, it's not just a difficult time, but it can also be a very creative time. The what if. I was reading a blog post not that long ago where the person says, in the neutral zone, instead of making to-do lists, we should be doing what if lists, right? This is what we need to do. Or what if we did X, Y, Z? And just that little bit change. And he makes a comment here about that if people need to recognize that it is natural to feel somewhat frightened and confused in this no man's land. As the old patterns die in their minds and the new ones begin to take shape, people in the neutral zone are assailed by self-doubt, misgivings about their leaders. So as leaders, we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware that there are shifting sands, and how do we change that? How do we let our people know that number one, that there is change, things are shifting, and that we're going to do the best we can for them and for the organizations we work for. One of the things I've repeated over and over again in my workshops and in these video blog posts is around communication. Be clear in your communication and repeat it. Make sure you're being very clear of your intentions with people. Be very clear about it. and repeat it. We're in this neutral zone right now, the zone between what was old pre-pandemic and what we're moving into. What does that look like? I don't know. But I do one thing I am pretty sure of, that we will see changes, we will see shifts. And there is an opportunity here for organizations to look at how they do things and how they might be able to do things different and try things different. There was a fear before to allow people to work, more people to work at home and to telecommute, because the fear that they wouldn't be working. This is now showing that actually people are working. Things are getting done. Assignments are getting completed. Interesting, isn't it? I don't have all the answers, but it'd be really interesting to know this, to see where this is going. So my name is John. If you've got any comments or suggestions, please add them to the bottom of this video as always, and feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you and have a great week.